Hello, friends, and welcome to the VIP room, Cinemondo podcast. Um, I've been talking about, we've been trying to use the VIP room as a way to sort of recommend movies that we've been thinking about or that we like. Because a lot of times when I sit down in the comfy chair in front of the gigantic TV in my living room, I think sometimes, what am I going to watch? And I sit there forever thinking about what am I going to watch, and then I fall asleep and it's midnight. So it's good to have a recommendation sometimes, somebody telling you what's good, what they, and if you watch this podcast and if you're in the VIP room, you maybe know our tastes and you kind of know what we like, and you maybe can trust us to give you a good recommendation, not to steer you wrong. We talk about a lot of old films because the newer films get a lot of promotion out there already. So there's a lot of things that you don't want them to be forgotten or underappreciated and all those things. There's a lot of movies that if you go back in time a little bit and it's like, oh yeah, that's a really good movie that I haven't seen in a long time. I remember really loving that, but then maybe it's been so long that you kind of forgot how it ended or you forgot some things about it. There is a joy to rediscovering a film that you have seen before but a long time ago, and maybe have kind of forgotten the feel you got from it. I like to go back sometimes and watch movies again that I haven't seen in a long time, that I feel like I've kind of lost touch with. That way there's a little bit of familiarity. You get to revisit something that you know that you liked at one point and kind of rediscover it. Maybe you're looking at it through different eyes now that you're, a decade older or whatever. But one of those movies that I go back to every so often because it's just such a wonderful example of filmmaking, storytelling with a camera, and actors and performances, story, the writing, the dialogue, the performances especially, is a film from 1971 called Harold and Maude with Ruth Gordon and Bud Cort, who steal, both of them together. I wish they had made 30 sequels. It's just seeing them together is just so fun. And anything Ruth Gordon's in, you can watch over and over because her performances are so captivating. You can't take your eyes off of her. And the same with Bud Cort. He is so quirky in this movie, such a bizarre young man in this film that and the character he plays is a idiosyncratic weirdo, I guess you could call him. But he's a lovable weirdo, and so is Ruth Gordon. Of course, she's always lovable, even when she's a satanic devil worshiper who's trying to get her next door neighbor to have a baby for the devil. She can even play that in a way that makes you like her. But in this one, she plays this sort of free spirited young woman in an older woman's body, which is really interesting. Her character Maude is one of these people that you just really like because she's just so in touch with the world, and she wants to save a little tree that doesn't look healthy, and so she wants to dig it up out of the middle of downtown and stick it in the back of a car and take it out to the forest. She's got these kind of ideas, and Harold, Bud Cort's character, falls in love with her, and you kind of don't question why. Everybody watching the movie falls in love with her too, but his character starts off the film as this sort of morose young man who's got a really overbearing mother who's trying to find him dates on this dating service, and they're all portrayed as these sort of annoying people that come to the house, and he he sort of represents how he feels about them by pretending to kill himself. These fake suicide attempts, which his mother has just, she's had enough of it, and she doesn't even bother her anymore to see him, cut his hand off or something. But he's trying to get some kind of reaction out of his mom, and she's just, she's over it. And anyway, to sort of fight against this overbearing mother, he goes in this sort of opposite direction of what she may want for him in his life. He goes to funerals and he sits and watches funerals. And, he's kind of like a proto goth. He drives a hearse around, and he sees Maude there, and Maude goes to funerals too. But you get, as the film progresses, you realize they go for different reasons, and he's this sort of detached, dark, sad, angsty. I don't know how to describe him other than like proto goth, I guess, or emo or whatever. But he meets her, and she is this outgoing person. She asks him, "Do you sing and dance?" And he's like, "Me? No." And she kind of gets him into it. She gives him this little banjo and just says, "Let's play music." And it's like, "I can't." And it's like, "Yeah, you can. Just try it. And whatever you play is good." It's just this kind of spirit of, yeah, have fun with your life and do what you want and enjoy life. Don't sit in the darkness and brood and obsess over the meaninglessness of it. Those kind of things, those existential crisis things that Harold was way too young to be having, but he's having them in this film. But he falls in love with Maude, and I don't want to give it away in case you haven't seen it. I have a feeling maybe you have seen it before, but if you haven't seen it, you need to see it, and you need to be surprised by the ending, which is so beautifully shot. There's a montage at the end of this, and usually montages maybe seem a little bit staged or contrived or something. But in some ways, montage can be great filmmaking, and it can tell you a story in a way that a scene where two people are talking, dialogue. You can't do it like that as well as you can with a sequence of events. Like, show me what is going on without dialogue. And you see it just in the performances, the body language, the responses to what somebody is saying. You don't hear what they're saying, but you judge by the response that it's sad, and that to me is a really fascinating way to tell a story with the camera. And there's a beautiful montage at the end of this film that I think is one of the best. It goes back and forth in time in a way that may seem confusing if you were to explain it to someone, but when you watch it in the film, it works so perfectly. The music in this, is by Cat Stevens, known as Cat Stevens at the time. Great songs, and they're not obtrusive. It's not like one of those movies that has pop songs that take you out of the story. Somehow the songs work really well in this movie. It is really of its time, and it really lends a feeling to the film. The lyrics pertain to what's happening in the film, and there's the montage at the end I'm talking about is done to a song by Cat Stevens called Trouble. And it's a beautiful little mini film in itself, I think. And anyway, it's a movie that you really should watch. I think it was when it came out, it was a bit controversial. And the idea of a young man falling in love with an older woman was seen as kind of controversial and icky or whatever, or creepy or whatever. And that became the topic of what people discussed when they talk about the film. Unfortunately, yes, that's an aspect of the film. It's a big part of the film, but it's not necessarily about, whatever you may think is weird about that. It's about the different types of people and how different types of people approach the idea of living a life. And I think in that respect, it's a really well-made, well-told story where you have this person who is not quite grabbing life and someone who really is, and how you transfer that idea from one person to another and make a person appreciate the beauty that's around. It's like somebody who just doesn't see it. How do you get them to see it? And this movie is a really fun example of that. It's a 70s film. It's It's got a very 70s vibe to it. It's 1971, so it may even still have some residual vibes from the 60s in it. It's got a bit of a 60s vibe. It's absolutely one of my favorite films. I watch it again and again every so often, and I think about scenes in it through my life. There are certain scenes in it which a great film will do that. It'll come back to you at certain times in your life, and you'll remember something from a film, and you'll use that in your life. And I think this is one of those films that has those moments, those usable moments, and quotes, and the idea of not being materialistic and not suffering and obsessing over things and worrying about things. Just live your life, enjoy your life, and have a beautiful life on your own terms. And that's what this film is about to me. It's a good one. And if you haven't seen it, you got to go see it. You got to find it. It's out there. And I highly recommend it. And that's it for this one. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.